Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Offering our salutations to Ramana, who shines as the self in every being, we begin today's satsang with a prayer, followed by the chanting of Muktaka trayam by Sri Nandakumarji. Dakshinamurti Sarambha Shankaracharya Madhyama Ramanacharya Paryanta Vande Guru Parampara Vande Guru Parampara Vande Guru Parampara Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarvavangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namah Satvikam Shivam. Namo Ramana.
Ekam aksharam hrudi nirantaram bhasati swayam likyate katham Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram yaham aham vidi sakshat atmarupena bhati Hrudi vishamanasa svam chinvata majjata pavana chalana rodha atmanishto bhavatvam. Deham mranmayavat jadatmakam aham buddhirnatasyasto naham tattata bhavashukti samaye siddhatma sadbhatah koham bhavayuta kuto varatiya drishtatmanishtatmana soham spurtitaya arunachala shivaha पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. नमो रमण.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the chanting of Upadesa Saram by Sripathy and Srimati Ashwini Balaji.
Namo Ramana. Karturajnaya prapyate palam karma kim param karma tajjadam kriti mahodadau patana karanam palamashashvatam gati nirodhakam ishwararpitam nechaya kritam chitta shodhakam mukti sadhakam Kaya vangmana karyamuttamam pujanam japas chintanam kramat jagata ishadhi yukta sevanam ashtamurti deva pujanam uttamastava ducchamandata chittajam japa dhyanamuttamam आज्यधारया स्रोतसासमं सरलचिन्तनं विरलतः परं वेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिदा पावनीमता भावशून्यसद्भावसुस्थिति भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृत्स्थले मना स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्ति योग बोधाश निश्चितम्. नमो रमण.
Namo Ramana. Now we have the offering of Ramananjali Sangeetam. The first offering will be by Srimati V.Radha, followed by an offering by Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan, which will be followed by one more offering of Ramananjali Sangeetam by Revathi Sankar.
Namo Ramana to all. Today I will be singing a song written by Sri Suddhananda Bharati. The music is by Sri L. Krishnan. அருமையும் நீயே பெருமையும் நீயே உயிருக்கு நீயே ரமணா அருமையும் நீயே பெருமையும் நீயே உயிருக்கு நீயே ரமணா ஓடும் உயிரின் ஓட்டத்துள்ளே ஒருமையும் நீயே பன்மையும் நீயே ஓடும் உயிரின் ஓட்டத்துள்ளே ஒருமையும் நீயே பன்மையும் நீயே அருமையும் நீயே பெருமையும் நீயே உயிருக்குயிர் நீயே ரமணா பெண்ணிற் பெண்ணும் நீயே ஆணில் ஆணும் நீயே பெண்ணிற் பெண்ணும் நீயே ஆணில் ஆணும் நீயே மண்ணிற் காணும் மகிமைக்குள்ளே மங்களமே ரமணானி மண்ணிற் காணும் மகிமைக்குள்ளே மங்களமே ரமணானி அருமையும் நீயே பெருமையும் நீயே உயிருக்குயிர் நீயே ரமணா சீரும் புகழும் நீயே செல்வத் திருவும் நீயே சீரும் புகழும் நீயே செல்வத்திருவும் நீயே கருதுவதும் உணருவதும் கருதுவதும் உணருவதும் பூரண ரமணானி அருமையும் நீயே பெருமையும் நீயே உயிருக்குயிர் நீயே ரமணா அருமையும் நீயே பெருமையும் நீயே உயிருக்குயிர் நீயே ரமணா உயிருக்குயிர் நீயே ரமணா உயிருக்குயிர் நீயே ரமணா. நமோ ரமண.
ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನೋ ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನೋ ಸದಾ ಮನವ ಸೆಳೆಯುವುದನು ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನೋ ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನೋ ಸದಾ ಮನವ ಸೆಳೆಯುವುದನು ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನು ಎಂತ ಶಾಂತಗಿರಿ ಇದು ಎಂತ ಶಾಂತಗಿರಿ ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ಅಂತರಂಗವನ್ನು ಶಾಂತಗೊಳಿಸಬೇಕು ಇಂದು ಶಾಂತಗೊಳಿಸಬೇಕು ಇಂದು ಎನ್ನುವ ಆಸೆ ತರುವುದನು ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನು ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನು ನನ್ನ ಎದೆಯ ಕರ್ತರಮಣ ನನ್ನ ಎದೆಯ ಕರ್ತರಮಣ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರುವನಲ್ಲವೇ ಶಿಖರವೆನುವ ಕಣ್ಣಿನಿಂದ ಶಿಖರವೆನುವ ಕಣ್ಣಿನಿಂದ ಬೆಳಗುತ್ತಿರುವನಲ್ಲವೇ ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನು ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನು ಉರಿಯ ಸುತ್ತು ಆ ಪತಂಗ ಉರಿಯ ಸುತ್ತು ಆ ಪತಂಗ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಉರುಳಿಗಳಿವ ರೀತಿ ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯ ಸುತ್ತಿ ಚಿತ್ತ ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯ ಸುತ್ತಿ ಚಿತ್ತ ಅದರಳಲಿಯೇ ನನಗೆ ಪ್ರೀತಿ ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನು ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನು ಸದಾ ಮನವ ಸೆಳೆಯುವುದನು ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನು ಅಮ್ಮ ನೋಡು ಅರುಣಗಿರಿಯನು. ಓಂ ನಮೋ ಭಗವತೆ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣಾಯ.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. I present to you a song by Sadhu Om Swami, Kannada translation by Dr. N.S. Lakshminarayana Bhatta. ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆಯನೆ ನಂಬಿ ಬಾಳುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ಬೀಡ ಬಿಡದೆ ರಮಣ ದೇವ ಕಾಯೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆಯನೆ ನಂಬಿ ಬಾಳುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ಬೀಡ ಬಿಡದೆ ರಮಣ ದೇವ ಕಾಯೋ ಕಂಡ ದಿನವೇ ಬಾಚಿತಬ್ಬಿನಿಂದೆ ದೂರ ತಳ್ಳುವುದೀಗ ನ್ಯಾಯವೇನೋ ಕಂಡ ದಿನವೇ ಬಾಚಿತಬ್ಬಿನಿಂದೆ ದೂರ ತಳ್ಳುವುದೀಗ ನ್ಯಾಯವೇನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆಯನೆ ನಂಬಿ ಬಾಳುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ಬೀಳ ಬಿಡದೆ ರಮಣ ದೇವ ಕಾಯೋ ನನ್ನ ಅಹಂಕಾರವನು ಉರಿಸು ಎಂದು ಇನ್ನಿಲ್ಲದಂತೆ ನಾ ಬೇಡುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ನನ್ನ ಅಹಂಕಾರವನು ಉರಿಸು ಎಂದು ಇನ್ನಿಲ್ಲದಂತೆ ನಾ ಬೇಡುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ನನ್ನ ಹಮ್ಮಿಗೆ ಚಿಗಿತ ವಾಸನೆಗಳ ಚಿನ್ಮಯನೆ ಕತ್ತರಿಸೋ ಮೇಯುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆಯನೆ ನಂಬಿ ಬಾಳುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ಬೀಳ ಬಿಡದೆ ರಮಣ ದೇವ ಕಾಯೋ ತಂದೆ ಬಾ ತಾಯಿ ಬಾ ಕಂದ ನಾನು ಎಂದು ಒಂದೇ ಸಮನೆ ಚೀರುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ತಂದೆ ಬಾ ತಾಯಿ ಬಾ ಕಂದ ನಾನು ಎಂದು ಒಂದೇ ಸಮನೆ ಚೀರುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ಅದು ಕೇಳಿಯೂ ನೀನು ಸಲಹದಿರಲು ಯಾರನಗೆ ಗತಿಯೆಂದು ನೋಯುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆಯನೆ ನಂಬಿ ಬಾಳುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ಬೀಳ ಬಿಡದೆ ರಮಣ ದೇವ ಕಾಯೋ ಕಂಡ ದಿನವೇ ಬಾಚಿತಬ್ಬಿನಿಂದೆ ದೂರ ತಳ್ಳುವುದೀಗ ನ್ಯಾಯವೇನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆಯನೆ ನಂಬಿ ಬಾಳುತ್ತಿರುವೆ ಬೀಳ ಬಿಡದೆ ರಮಣ ದೇವ ಕಾಯೋ ರಮಣ ದೇವ ಕಾಯೋ ರಮಣ ದೇವ ಕಾಯೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with a reading and a sharing session by Sri Nandakumarji. From past few weeks, we have been reading from the publication from our center, Forever in the Now. I request Sri Nandakumarji to continue reading from the same publication and share his insights.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we continue our gleanings, readings from Forever is in the Now, the timeless message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, edited and compiled by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We have been reading from the second segment of the book. The first segment was purely the teachings, and the second segment, which we started with the account by A.W. Chadwick, Alan Chadwick, is remembering Ramana Maharshi. We had seen in the last week some accounts by a painter, Elliot C. Clark, and Swami Deshikananda. And this week we begin our readings with the account entitled All Are Ramana's Forms by a European Sadhak. All are only Ramana's forms, a European Sadhak. Sri Bhagavan was unique peerless. Why should I say was? He is unique and he is peerless. One gracious look, one understanding, sympathetic word had always meant oceans to the earnest seeker, to the aspiring pilgrim. And which sincere voyager has gone to him and returned empty-handed, and which devout sadhaka has sought his guidance and has not got it. The intellectual quibbler might have been given the short shrift by him. The dry philosopher might have found in him a steel wall. The eternal doubter would have returned from him not any the better. But those who have unreservedly surrendered themselves to a pursuit of truth have never failed to find in him a great guide. And in what infinite ways has he helped true sadhaks? Sometimes the sought for guidance would come through an answer given to somebody's question. Sometimes it would be provided through a direct monosyllabic answer. And sometimes it would be through a subjective experience. And if the hundreds of pilgrims on the path of spirituality and guidance from Sri Bhagavan were to unfold their subjective experience, the world will know how gracious, compassionate, benevolent, and all-pervasive Sri Bhagavan has been and is. But subjective experiences are intimate, and they are provided only to the personal spiritual advancement of the particular sadhak, aspirant. It is therefore not usually considered necessary to take the world into confidence regarding the subjective experiences of sadhaks. But since I have been invited by the editor to write on how Sri Ramana, Sri Maharshi has been helping the aspirants, I venture to refer to just one experience of mine. Once I was going on the eastern side of the Arunachala hill in full belief and confidence that I had unreservedly surrendered myself to Sri Bhagavan. Once I was going on the eastern side of the Arunachala hill in the full belief and confidence that I had unreservedly surrendered myself to Sri Bhagavan. Suddenly, I saw a leper woman walking towards me. Her face was terribly disfigured by the disease. Her nose had been completely eaten away, and in its place were found 2 holes. The fingers on her hands had all gone. She advanced towards me and, extending the stumps of her hands, asked me to give her something to eat. The sight of her disgusted me, frightened me. My whole frame shuddered with terror and that she might touch me. Overcome by repulsion, I hastened to move away from her. Suddenly, I heard the voice of Sri Bhagavan coming clear and ringing from across the mountain. It said, "To surrender to me is to surrender to everyone, for the self is in everyone." Suddenly, I heard the voice of Sri Bhagavan coming clear and ringing from across the mountain. It said, "To surrender to me is to surrender to everyone, for the self is in everyone." Hearing this, I regained my poise and offered the leper woman the plantains that I had in my bag. In a few minutes, I saw myself standing before not the disfigured leper woman, but before a tall old man with white long hair and beard. The man looked like a rishi and was smiling. When the thought of prostrating before the rishi entered my mind, I saw before me the old leper woman again. I bowed, happy at heart, though somewhat confused in mind, and then resumed my walk up the hill. This experience taught me a new lesson and made me tread a new path. I have cited this as just one of the ways through which Sri Bhagavan teaches, guides, and helps. Infinite indeed are the ways through which he teaches the aspirant. Since what he has been providing before and what he will continue to provide hereafter is a subjective help to a subjective research, it may not, and usually does not, produce wondrous ripples on the objective surface. Sri Bhagavan is the one and real Guru. May his grace enflood our being. We go to the second account. Ramana Jayanti by Kumar. There is an introduction, a single line introduction to this author. He is a regular contributor on Ramana to newspapers and journals. Obviously, we don't have an introduction to a European sadhak. Ramana Jayanti by Kumar. With its dew-soaked nights and warm days, the chill winds and drifting clouds, the month of Margashira has charms as varied as its significance. It is the month when the temple bells awaken to life in the early hours of the morn and announce the commencement of worship. It is the season when lotus-eyed maidens frisk about the pumpkin shrubs, gather basketfuls of dew-dipping flowers, and set them standing on columns, decorating the front of their houses, their house friends. It is the period when worshippers of Vishnu greet the morning star with a chant of Tirupavai, the devotional lyric brimming with emotion and flowing with rhythm, and carrying their worship to its crescendo on the Ekadasi day. It is the month when Shaivites adore Shiva in the form of Nataraja, the interpreter of the cosmic rhythm of movement, and complete the festivities on the Ardra day. It is also the month when every morning groups of people go round the streets singing to the clanging time beats of cymbals, songs which in their melody as well as their march hold the onlooker in thrall. On this month of spiritual values, fostered by the Puranas and perpetuated by the traditions, the birthday of Sri Ramana, the birthday of Sri Ramana Maharshi has shed an additional lustre. Those who view Sri Maharshi through their gross sense outfit mark the 7th of January of that year, 1947 perhaps, as the 68th birthday of the Master. But they sweetly forget that the milestones in time which they count as those that mark their lives which flee to a purposeless end. For Sri Maharshi sits on the banks of time, watches its flow, unmoved and unaffected. He is ageless, and therefore the birthday has no significance to him. It reminds him of no unfinished strings and goads him on to no great endeavors. These are the things that we do on our birthdays, that some unfinished strings of life are pursued on and we again resolve to do great endeavors. But he doesn't have any of that. He is full and complete and perfect. Sri Maharishi's birthday has significance for those who worship him. For those who are not able to rush to his feet, it recalls a life difficult even of intellectual comprehension and sets them on a track of quest. The day fills the bhaktas who sit in his presence with disquiet as regards their balance sheet in spiritual striving and calls on them to avail themselves of the Master's grace. What a strange crowd is this Jayanti congregation. It contains people who, propelled by the self-destructive urge of their egos, sit before Sri Maharshi in a trance, allowing the latter's grace to bake their souls as much as possible, as quickly as possible. It includes people who stand rooted on faith that worship of Sri Maharshi in the traditional style with traditional paraphernalia would itself entitle them to a place in heaven. It has too people who come to seek the Master's grace for perpetuating the conquests which their ego has earned in the merry-go-round of life, and for asking and getting more if that could be prayed for and got. Anyway, Sri Maharishi is the magnet of attraction, and people try to use him in the way they want, for purposes they want. He is the sun whose rays of grace fall and dance on the minds and hearts that are open. Sri Maharishi is today the repository and reflector of the spiritual traditions of India. Those who read the Upanishads and the Gita and wrangle over the immediate and the ultimate can see in him a silent achievement of the highest. Those who dig their spurs into the sides of the racehorse mind and keep it hurrying towards worry and discontent will see in Sri Maharishi a God-man who has annihilated his mind and is therefore in perfect stillness and bliss. I'll read that paragraph, the last one. Sri Maharishi is today the repository and reflector of the spiritual traditions of India. Those who read the Upanishads and the Gita and wrangle over the immediate and the ultimate can see in him a silent achievement of the highest. Those who dig their spurs into the sides of their racehorse mind and keep it hurrying towards worry and discontent will see in Sri Ramana Maharshi a God-man who has annihilated his mind and is therefore in perfect stillness and bliss. The last article for today, perhaps, is Ramana fulfills the Muni's promise. Ramana fulfills the Muni, Ganapati Muni's promise. This is by Guntur Lakshmikantam. There is an introduction. Lakshmikantam Guntur. He is the biographer of Ganapati Muni in Telugu. Ramana fulfills the Muni's promise. Guntur Lakshmikantam. My Guru Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni used to always din into my ears the glory of Bhagavan Ramana. He would say, I am just an atom. Bhagavan is the incomparable Meru. He had assured me that he would take me to Ramana personally and make me learn the Hridaya Vidya from him. I was eagerly looking forward to it. Then the bolt from the blue came. The Muni attained Nirvana in 1936. Everything was dark for me. I also lost all hopes of learning the truth from Ramana directly. One can understand my fear. Even if I were to boldly make the request, why would he accept it from a stranger like me? However, all of a sudden, in June 1937, I went to Arunachala for the darshan of Bhagavan. There was no particular reason for me to do so at that time. In retrospect, I can see the hidden hand of my Guru Ganapati Muni. It was so that I may not only receive the guidance from Bhagavan about the science of the heart, but also to experience its fruits by his grace. Bhagavan was seated on the sofa when we entered. My Guru was the resplendent. Bhagavan was incomparable. His luster would put to shame 1,000 suns. Bhagavan did not see us. He did not even turn towards us. There was no sign of his having noticed us. We felt discouraged. During the day, he was moving about in the ashram. I crossed his path several times in order to catch his attention, but it was of no avail. In the evening, Bhagavan was seated again on the sofa. I took Mahadeva Shastri, the son of Ganapati Muni, with me and sat near the sofa. Even then, Bhagavan's eyes did not turn in our direction. All of a sudden, he called Narasimham, who was copying the Uma Sahasram, in a notebook and asked, have you understood the meaning of the verses? Narasimham replied, I get the general drift, but not their true import. When the conversation thus turned to Uma Sahasram, I felt renewed and energized. For was it not my Guru's magnum opus, surpassing even the matchless poetry of Kalidasa? Bhagavan told Narasimham, how come do you not understand? You are a scholar yourself. Nayana has the knack of putting even the most difficult ideas in easy flowing and beautiful style. So saying, he started explaining the meaning of verses 96, 97 and 98. I was all attention. This is precisely what my Guru had promised. Ramana's words ran thus. The light of the self travels from the heart to the mind, from there to various parts of the body. Then one identifies himself with the body. The discriminating one must, through incessant effort, turn the light back to the heart, wherefrom it has risen. Then one experiences the bliss of the self. The heart is the support of the entire universe. Though the heart is all pervasive, since the individual identifies himself with the body, a physical location, the right side, is indicated. While uttering the last words, he looked straight at my heart. I'll read that paragraph of Ardha Vidya, Upadesa by Bhagavan to the author. I was all attention. This is precisely what my Guru had promised. Ramana's words ran thus. The light of the self travels from the heart to the mind and from there to various parts of the body. Then one identifies himself with the body. The discriminating one must, through incessant effort, turn that light back to the heart wherefrom it has risen. Then one experiences the bliss of the self. The heart is the support of the entire universe. Though the heart is all pervasive, since the individual identifies himself with the body, a physical location, the right side, is indicated. While uttering the last words, he looked straight at my heart. How can I describe the wonder of the experience which followed? I was simply bathed in joy, the kind of which I had never known before. What can one say about the spontaneous grace of Bhagavan? He had blessed me with the experience for which even the greatest devas are waiting and eager longing. He had not only given me an intellectual understanding, but had showered the bliss which flows when one practices the Ramana way with unfailing diligence. It was almost as if he was saying, "You have got what Nayana had promised, and that for which you had been so eager. Now it is up to you to make it your own by steadfast practice." I'll read the last paragraph again. How can I describe the wonder of the experience which followed? I was simply bathed in joy, the kind of which I had never known before. What can one say about the spontaneous grace of Bhagavan? He had blessed me with the experience for which even the greatest devas are waiting with eager longing. He had not only given me an intellectual understanding, but had showered the bliss which flows when one practices the Ramana way with unfailing diligence. It was almost as if he was saying, "You have got what Nayana had promised, and that for which you had been so eager. Now it is up to you to make it your own by steady practice, steadfast practice." Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. The Upadesa, which was got by the author of the Hridaya Vidya, and the Upadesa from Bhagavan to hold on to this practice. So we continue our satsang with the meditation on the Upadesa of Bhagavan and the practice of self-enquiry under the guidance of Nandakumarji again. Uncle, please unmute yourself.
We take one of the talks of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi from the work Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi by Sri Munagal Venkatesh. We have got talk number 422 randomly taken today. 7th June 1937, talk 422. Dr. Venkatarao, a visitor from Guntur, again, asked, a guru asks his disciple to do things contrary to ethical principles. But the disciple, having accepted the person as the master, desires to please the master, but his moral sense obstructs him. What should he do under these circumstances? I'll repeat the question if it is a bit complicated. A guru asks his disciple to do things contrary to ethical principles, but the disciple, having accepted the person as the master, desires to please the master, but his moral sense obstructs him. What should he do under these circumstances? Bhagavan, no reply. Devotee, I shall make myself clear. The Guru asked his disciple to commit a theft, and the disciple did not do it. The master then said, I wanted to test you to see if you had completely surrendered yourself or retained your individuality. It is now clear what it is. Is the Guru right in ordering the disciple that way? Maharshi, still no reply. Another person observed, there are persons on whom I refuse to sit on judgment. Still, I cannot help feeling that if they deserve the appellation of Gurus, they appear bogus men. If they be really worthy, they would not order the disciples that way. This is how the other person. But see how Bhagavan comes in, Maharshi. But the person says it is for a test. And we have seen the leper incident by the European Sadak, where the surrender was tested that way. Surrender to the Guru was tested that way. And Bhagavan is saying here, apparently strangely to those who follow ethics as their bhakti, that he says, but the person says it is for a test. The questioner continued, should it be carried out? Maharshi, your original statement contains the answer to your question. Both the questioners jointly asked, the action is disagreeable, can it be done? Maharshi, the question might be referred to the person himself, the Guru. He is responsible for the situation. So that's why the European Sadak had written, these subjective experiences may not find approval or create ripples in the objective world. And they are not to be referred for objective approval. It is between you and the Guru, and you have to take the call. Each one has to take the call, and there will be the teaching. There will be the learning from that. There is no other support. Even Dharma cannot come in support of the relationship with the Guru. One has to directly relate oneself to the Guru and learn from that. But this is an area where objective instruction cannot come. That's why Bhagavan is maintaining mauna, because the objective instruction could lead to the thought that Bhagavan is instructing somebody to go against ethics. That's not the point in consideration. The point in consideration is the surrender of the disciple to the Guru, where even the thoughts of right and wrong that he has may come in the way. But this is very subjective, very personal, and some in a place where the world need not be sought approval of, the world cannot come in support. It is directly a relationship between the disciple and the Guru. Each one has to rely on the intuition and go towards the Guru, towards total surrender. Any assumption of that I have surrendered will be tested by the Guru. In the case of the European Sadak, it was a leper who comes in front and he is able to see that his surrender requires some work. Here it is taught in some other way, but this cannot be objectively explained. It can only be subjectively felt. We go to the next talk 423. A young man asked, I try to cultivate willpower, but do not succeed. What should I do? Maharshi, no answer. Devotee, I came here 3 years ago, and Sri Bhagavan said that willpower is necessary for strength of mind. Since then, I have been desiring to cultivate it, but without success. Maharshi, no answer. Devotee, during these years, I have had 4 or 5 reverses. They upset me considerably. There is always the fear of failure haunting my attempts. This results in want of faith in myself and certainly foredooms my efforts to failure. Nothing, in fact, succeeds like success, and also nothing foils one's attempts like failure. Hence my question. Maharshi, again, Mauna. Devotee, is not willpower necessary for success? It should ensure success and also rule out failure. Maharshi, no answer again. Devotee, I will try to gain willpower. After these years, I find myself only where I began. There is no progress. Maharshi, no answer. Devotee, what are the means for gaining willpower? Here Bhagavan gives the answer. Maharshi, your idea of willpower is success insured. Willpower should be understood to be the strength of mind which makes it capable of meeting success and failure with equanimity. It is not synonymous with certain success. Why should one's attempts be always attended with success? Success develops arrogance, and the man's spiritual progress is thus arrested. Failure, on the other hand, is beneficial, inasmuch as it opens the eyes of the man to the limitations and prepares him to surrender himself. Self-surrender is synonymous with eternal happiness. Therefore, one should try to gain the equipoise of mind under all circumstances. That is willpower. Again, success and failure are the results of prarabdha and not of willpower. A man may be doing only good and noble actions and yet prove a failure. Yet another may do otherwise and yet be uniformly successful. This does not mean that willpower is present in one and not in the other. So what we normally construe as willpower, that it is success insured, that when we surrender to Bhagavan, everything in the world that we attempt will go in within inverted commas, success. Whatever we'll do will meet with success. Is not what is surrender or true willpower, says Bhagavan. What is true willpower? True willpower is the ability to take success or failure with equipoise. When we do that, what happens? The whole of grace of self is with us. When we want it to channelize to success, then that grace is divided by our ego. But we understand this Upadesa of Bhagavan, that what is to be aimed for is not success, but an equipoise of mind, a balance of mind, a calmness of mind, which takes both success and failure in the same mode. Then the grace that is underlying our actions is now always present with us because we are not dividing it as success and failure. Now that allows us to turn inward completely to the grace in Atma Vicharam. When we stop giving so much importance to success, when we stop saying that my speech should come out very well and should be appreciated by all, but I take the ups and downs which come naturally in this kind of mode of sharing with equipoise, then the turning inward becomes automatic. So that is willpower, says Bhagavan. Participate in the world, but take success within inverted commas and failure within inverted commas with equipoise. That allows you to completely turn inward. The wholeness of grace is present behind all your activities, and it is so easy to turn inward to that grace. What one can do when a thought arises, since one is not anxious to the result that the thought will give, I can easily let go of the thought and ask, for whom is this thought? The answer will be, this thought has arisen for me. And who am I will take me to the fullness of grace, to the fullness of the self. With repeated practice of returning the light that is now searching outside for success, by returning that ray of light back to its source, the self, with repeated practice, Bhagavan assures one gains this ability to rest in that grace, to rest in that self effortlessly and naturally. Till such effortless and natural resting in the self, that Parandama from which there is no return, is our very nature. Till that is within inverted commas attained, because it is ever attained, one should make the effort of having equipoise to success and failure and have the ability to turn inward by letting go of thought and getting back to the source by asking, who am I? With Bhagavan's immense grace, which is limitless and is always present as the self, let us practice Atma Vicharam for 10 minutes. Ujwalji, you can set the timing for it.
Yes, Sankar, I'll do that.
Thank you. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with a meditation on the Dakshinamurti Stotra by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande.
Oh. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyama Ramanacharya Paryanta Vande Guru Parampara Vande Guru Parampara Vande Guru Parampara. We're doing Manana on Dakshinamurti Stotram. Om Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvan Vasishtante Vasadrishiganai Avratam Brahmanishthai Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudramanandamurtim Swatmaramam Muditavanam Dakshinamurti Midhe. I salute Sri Dakshinamurti, the young Guru who teaches the knowledge of the Brahman through silence, who is surrounded by disciples who are themselves rishis and scholars in the Vedas. I worship Sri Dakshinamurti, who is the teacher of teachers, whose hand is held in the sign of knowledge, Chinmudra, whose nature is fullness, who reveals in himself and who is ever. Today we'll be doing Manana on the verse number 10, which is the Phalashruti. Sarvatmatvam iti sputikritam idam yasmad ashmuns amushminstave tenasya shravanat tadharta manana dhyana cha sankritanat Sarvatma Mahabuddhi Sahitam Shad Ishwaratvam Swataha Siddheta Tat Punar Parinatam Cha Ishwaryam Avyahatam. The knowledge, all this Atman, Sarvat Atmatvan has been explained in this hymn. And so by hearing it, by reflecting and meditating upon its meaning, and by reciting it, one will attain that divine state endued with the glory of the all-selfhood, along with the permanent eightfold holy powers of Godhood. So as we all know, this is the benefit of the study. Everything has a benefit. The benefit of the study is the phalashruti. So Sarvat Matvam is very important. Vedic terminology. Atma is self. Sarvatma means the self of all. Sarvat Matvam means the state of being the self of all. Means being Brahman. In this Amashman hymn, this state of being the self of all is thus made clear, because it is made clear by this hymn through Shravana, Manana, Dhyana and Sankirtana, one gains Sarvatmatmam. The whole meaning teaching of the Vedanta is present in this Sri Dakshinamurti hymn, because ultimate teaching of Vedanta is Tattvam Asi. That is present in almost every verse. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana are spiritual practices that are extremely important to realize this Vedantic teaching. So spiritual practices for Vedantic study, we'll just go a little more into detail into Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. Shravana, it literally means listening. However, it implies much more than just listening. It actually means to use these teachings that you hear for the sake of discovering the truth of yourself. I'll read that again. It actually means to use these teachings that you hear for the sake of discovering the truth of yourself. It means to use these teachings to guide your own process of self-enquiry. Manana. Manana means meditation. In general, meditation is about putting your mind into a particular state or condition. It is the intellectual inquiry for the very specific reason. In our mind, many doubts arise. Doubts are born of confusion. We need help to deal with these doubts and confusion. Manana is the process of removing these doubts and confusion. The third is Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana means contemplation. The purpose of contemplation is to address a gap between what we understood and how we behave. The purpose of contemplation is a very important point. The purpose of contemplation is to address a gap between what we understand and how we behave. It is the process of seeing the truth over and over again to remove wrong way of thinking. It is a process of assimilation, having the spiritual teachings go in deeply, having these teachings penetrate all of our thinking, having these teachings finally become our worldview. When these teachings become your worldview, you see everything as manifestation of Brahman. Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana are absolutely necessary practices in spiritual growth. Merely studying this hymn, again I'm reading, merely studying this hymn without these spiritual practices might not be useful. In fact, all the Vedanta might become useless without Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. Just look at all the books in a bookshelf. Sit there unopened are useless. Just like all the books in a bookshelf sit they're unopened are useless. You have to use these books to get and benefit out of them. You have to use the teachings of Vedanta to get any benefit out of that. Using them does not mean just reading them. Reading any other book is fine. Reading Vedanta book is not enough. Shravana is a process of learning. It is to be followed by manana and nididhyasana. Sankirtana. It is important to recite the hymn. Sankirtana is also means of teaching. Some people might learn it thoroughly and would teach others. However, teaching is optional, but reciting for your own spiritual growth is important. By doing this, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and Sankirtana, what would you get? So, the important thing is, this is a typical question. If you ask a child, if you say, do this to a child will say, what will I get? So, same question, what will I get? Sarvatmatmam means Brahman, being the truth of all. It is revealed clearly in this hymn that if you practice Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, you get Sarvatmatvam. Shravana makes you discover the fact about Sarvatmatvam. Manana removes any doubts, and Nididhyasana allows you to fully assimilate that reality. Because Sarvatmatvam revealed in this hymn, together with your efforts of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, what would come is you discover your own state of being Ishvara. What would come is discover your own state of being Ishvara. Ishvaratvam. This Ishvaratvam is very misunderstood concept. This I am God is horribly a misunderstood statement. This is terribly mistaken interpretation of Advaita non-dual Vedanta. If statement like this, your own godliness, is not understood correctly, people make mistake of incorrect interpretation. Let us understand this statement in its true sense. The reality because of which you, Jiva, exists, and the reality because of which Ishvara exists, and the reality because of which everything exists is the same reality. Nothing is separate. So, Ishvaratvam here reveals that you are not separate from Ishvara in that fundamental sense. You are still a human being. Ishvara as an individual being has certain powers, but limited. Brahman as Ishvara Upadhi, as a creator, sustainer and destroyer of the universe, takes on certain capacity. Same Brahman as Jiva Upadhi, as an individual with individual body and mind, takes on different set of qualities and capacity. Jiva Upadhi is what makes you an individual. Ishvara Upadhi is what makes Ishvara as creator, sustainer and destroyer. However, Upadhi is a conditioning factor. What is being conditioned by Upadhi is the same Brahman. For example, clay is used for a very tiny pot or for a very big pot. The tiny pot is Jiva Upadhi. The mammoth, humongous pot is Ishwar Upadhi. But it is the same clay as underlying reality. The difference is only in Upadhi, because Upadhi has different qualities. So, going back to the statement, Ishvaratman Swataha Syat, with your efforts of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, you can discover your non-separation from Ishvara. The reason is you share the same underlying reality, that is Brahman. Not only you will gain Ishvaratman, but you will but along with Sahitam, that you will get great glory. This glory is Sarvatmatvam. The consciousness that you are is the same consciousness because of which the universe exists. The whole teachings of Vedanta culminates in a single word called Sarvatmatman. we'll continue to do manana on the final verse lines of the verse number 10 in the next satsang. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana Deshji. We continue the satsang with the meditation on the work which has been translated to Tamil by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi, which is Devika Lotram Jnana Vichara Padalam. This sharing will be by Dr.Kalarani Rengasamy.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Arunachalamena agame ninaipavar agatte veraruppai Arunachala. Namo Ramana to all. With the abundance grace of Bhagavan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam, very kindly given to us by Ramana in Tamil. And in the last satsang we saw, the mind is wandering about the worldly objects and happenings and get attached towards them. And direct that wandering mind, abide in the self. For doing so, see that there is no attachment to the worldly object, says Bhagavan. There will be attachment only when there is a thought that those objects are different from us. When it is understood that there is nothing other than the self, then where is the difference? Bhagavan says, only when attention is given to the oscillating mind and give importance to the wandering mind, it directs us and even rein us. Instead, if the attention is directed to the inner self, then the thoughts arising will also get subsided in the self. When mind is not given any attention, it also becomes vexed, bored, and become calm. In the next stanza, Bhagavan says, Iv ella bhuda laya mundagil. Among the 5 elements, the Panchapuda space will be there in all the other 4 elements. In Pralaya Kala, when all the other 4 elements to the worldly objects, then he will not be inclined to get what he desires. And it merges with the space. It makes no difference for the space. It does not take the characteristics from that elements. Water cannot drench the space, air cannot blow the space, bhumi cannot affect the space, and fire cannot burn the space. So even though space is very much with all the 4 elements, it is not affected. If ella bhuda layam undagil, ivatru evvev vinnum vimale pola. As the space does not get affected by the 4 elements, Bhagavan says, av uruvam vyapittum or malam il. In the same manner, though Paravastu is very much present in each and every object, each and every jiva, each and every person, it does not get affected by the guna of those objects. Every vegetable, say for example, has its own color, taste. Will in any way affect the Paravastu in it? Absolutely not. Man has his own moods. Different moods at different times. He shows his anger at one time, hatred at one time, and at one time he is happy with all and shows love. But in the inner self, in no way it gets affected by these different moods. That is his nature. When one is aware of this truth, he will not get attached to the worldly objects. And he will not be inclined to get what he desired, because there will be nothing other than himself. Only when he thinks there is something other than the self, he wants it. He works for it. He works for getting that object. If he does not get that, he is so dejected. He feels sorrow. I'll tell you a small story of Mullah. Once Mullah was crying And his friend asked him why he was crying. Mullah said, my grandfather died last month and you were not here. You were out of station. Oh, it's okay, Mullah. He was nearly 110 years old. No, my friend, he left 20 acres of fertile land. So why are you crying? No, I feel like crying. But for what? 15 days back, my father also passed away. Okay, Mullah, he was about 90 years. Mullah said, he also left me with 5 houses. Okay, be happy. No, my friend, I feel like crying. But why? Mullah said, last week my uncle also passed. Oh, poor man. Okay. Did he also left any property with you? He was nearly 85 years old, isn't it? Did he give you something? Yes, Mullah said, he gave me crores of rupees. Okay, be relaxed. You must feel happy for that. Why are you crying? Be happy. No, I want to cry. His friend got angry. There is no reason for you, Mullah, to cry. I'm going. Leave it off. No, just listen. What? Do you know why I'm crying? Okay, tell. All have gone. Hereafter, there is no one else to give me property and die. That is why I'm crying. His friend got tensed. Such will be the desire when one thinks that the worldly object is different from himself. That is why Bhagavan says, when the source of all objects, the source of all happenings are realized and get abide in that, all which is seen will be seen as self alone. There is nothing else other than the self. And that self, the Atma, is not going to get affected by the characteristics of the object or the person. Avav uruvam vyapittum or malam il. As the space is there in all the other 4 elements, it does not get affected. Even though Paravastu, the self, is very much present in each and every object, and it does not get affected by those characteristics of those objects. When we cook, say for example, the vessel does not know the taste at all. Likewise, when a spadika stone is there, we can see some color through the spadikam, and it is seen as though the stone is taking that color, but it's not in reality. It doesn't. It's an illusion. Only when we take the stone away from that color, it will be spadikam only, and the color will not be there. And in the same way, Atma, in no way affected by the characteristics of the objects or the different moods of a person. So Bhagavan says, do dhyanam of that Atma which does not change at all. Poruvil tannai dhyanam puri. Don't give attention to the things that always changes. Happiness, sorrow, anger, hatred, all come and go. So ignore them. When you start ignoring them, the mind will automatically turn towards its source, and so do dhyana of the self. Give attention to Atma, says Bhagavan. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. The next part of the satsang, we have been meditating on the verses written by Ganapati Muni on Bhagavan Ramana, which has been compiled and titled as Ramana Chatvarimshat by Ramana himself. We are on the verse 18, which says, Dharme nashamupagate tribhuvane paryakule papatah prajnane parito giram patimuda sancharyamane janaihi sadbhave parameshwarasya cha pitu sandehadolangate द्वीपकैतवमर्त्यकेकितुरग त्वामन्तरा कासतां रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः ಧರ್ಮನಾಶವಾಗುತ್ತಿದೆ ತ್ರಿಲೋಕವು ಮರುಳಾಗಿದೆ ಪಾಪದಿ ನಿಜ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಅರಿಯದ ಜನರು ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ತೊಡಗಿಹರು ವಾಗ್ವಾದದಿ ಸದಾ ಪೊರೆವ ತಂದೆ ಪರಮೇಶನ ಇರುವೆ ಸಂದೇಹಿಸಲ್ಪಡುತ್ತಿದೆ ರಕ್ಷೆ ನೀನೆ ನರವೇಶಿ ನವಿಲುವಾಹನನೆ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಹಿತರಾರೆ ಮಗೆ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ. Ganapati Muni prays to Ramana. Ramana, who is none other than Subramanya, the one who rides on the peacock, the divine peacock. That great Subramanya who has come in the human form is Bhagavan Ramana. And he says, Ramana, it is right time for you to come and reveal your truth as the world teacher. You have to come as the teacher because I see that the dharma is waning. Dharma is getting destroyed and people not knowing what is right, they are filled with confusion, and then in that confusion they are doing wrong things. They are doing wrong deeds. They are doing papa. So it is your duty to come and show the right path, the path which is good to the whole world. You alone are the good, which you alone can bring that goodness, that hita to the whole world. So I am requesting you, I am praying that you come down and reveal yourself as the world teacher. And he, in the second line, he gives one more reason. He says that people who are filled with delusion, who are filled with ajnana, they are not able to understand what true jnana is. When devotees have come to Ramana and they have asked, Bhagavan, can a jnani know another jnani? Because we do not know in the external appearance who is a jnani, because the jnana is the internal state. Ramana himself says that when one gets jnana, you don't see any change in the external circumstances. You don't see any changes in the world around them. But that the jnana is the internal change. There is a beautiful Sufi story, the Zen story, where it says that there is a normal person sees a tree as a tree, a mountain as a mountain, a river as a river, and a house as a house, and people as people. And there is a philosopher. That philosopher who is a sadhaka, he sees tree as not tree. He sees mountain as not mountain. He sees the river as not the river. He sees the ocean as not the ocean. But when one attains the wisdom, the one attains jnana, again that jnani sees the tree as a tree. He sees the mountain as a mountain and the river as a river. So we see that the state of a ajnani and the state of jnani, externally there is no difference, but internally there is a change. The ajnani is caught up in the world. He sees this is a tree, and this tree, what all I can get from this tree, he thinks about it, and he tries to cause harm to the tree, and through his activity he is causing danger to the whole world. But a jnani understands the tree is a tree. And Ramana says the tree is not just a tree. It has life. It is same as a man. The tree is a standing man and a man is a walking tree. This insight can only be given by a great jnani. A jnani who has understood, and he who is reveling in that state of jnana, he alone can bestow the jnana to the people. But the people who are ajnanis, the one who asked, can a jnani know another jnani? Ramana replied that there is no others for a jnani at all. The Ramana does not see anybody as ajnani at all. He only sees the jnana tattva in everyone, the divine tattva, the essence which is there in everyone. He only sees that. So to his eyes, there is no ajnana at all. There is only jnana. Just like how a sun can never understand what is darkness, because the sun is full of light, and wherever it goes, it only brings light. In the same way, the jnani is the one who just by his presence reveals the glory of the jnana. So the people who are in ajnana, they are not able to understand what is the true power of jnana, and they are only filled with the discussions and unwanted debates of what is jnana and what is not jnana, and what is the way to attain jnana and what is not. So they are only wasting their time in these debate and discussions, and these debate and discussions will never take us to that state of true jnana. So the people are filled in this delusion, and they are filled in these debates and discussion, and wasting the lifetime opportunity to turn within and be abiding in that supreme state of jnana. So it is your duty, O Ramana, to come and again reveal the glory of jnana that you have been revealing as Arunachala from the days of yore. You have been standing as a hill from the earth to the heaven, and you have been telling that very same truth as Dakshina Murti in your silence, that truth which the ajnanis are not able to understand. It is your duty to come and save the world by revealing that truth in your words. And in the last line, the third line, he says that because of their ajnana, the people are even doubting the existence of the Supreme Father, the Parameshwara, who is taking care of the whole universe. They are doubting the presence of that Parameshwara who alone exists. Ramana has told by many great poets and authors that Ramana has come to earth to revive that traditional Indian spiritual heritage. He has come to revive that truth which has been told in the Vedas, which has been told in the Upanishads, which has been reiterated in different ways in the Puranas and the Mahakavyas. That very same truth Ramana has come to revive and make it available to the people in the way that we can understand, and we can regain our faith in that Parameshwara who is taking care. We all know that Ramana was born a great Bhakta. Shiva Prakasham Pillai in his Ramana Padamalai says, Shiranda Bhakti Neri Unartum Shemmal Padam Vargave. The Ramana, the feet of Ramana has come to the earth only to show the world what is true devotion. Ramana, when he was born with the constant remembrance of Arunachala, that Parameshwara Tattva, that Arunachala, and it was so natural that he thought this Arunachala Tattva which is shining within him, the Spurana that is shining within him is natural to everyone. And later, he with his friends used to go and swim in the Kauntinya river near Tiruchuli, and there was a temple of Shiva, Kalayar temple, which was not worshipped by anyone. And there, he and his friends used to go and bring the water from the river and do abhishekam to that linga which was there, and offer the food that they would have brought as the Nevedyam. And after the Nevedyam, they all used to share that food as prasadam. In his young age, he revealed to the whole world the true bhakti. And later, to reveal that true bhakti which is told in the Bhagavad Gita, that there are different people who approach God, those who are in difficulty, those who want some artha, who want some money, or those who are jignasus, all these people seek God. But the one who is favorite among these devotees is Ajnani. Ramana played the Leela of Jnanodaya. He faced the death and he became one with that power which is ever shining within him, which is the Sakshi for everything that is happening, which is untouched by this body, which takes care of this body, which is works through this body, yet it is untouched by this body. In that supreme force, he became one with that supreme force and became a jnani. And jnani, who is a true bhakta, to reveal his bhakti to the whole world, he played the leela of his journey towards Arunachala, how he had complete faith in Arunachala and how he took that journey with full faith. And he explains that he was just like a straw which was taken by a big tornado. In the same way, he had complete faith in that tornado, the great Shakti, Adishaya Shakti, which is called the Arunachala, which cannot be described by anyone. That force brought him to Arunachala, to the physical presence of Arunachala, and there he stayed, revealing to everyone that the presence of the Supreme Father is ever present. That alone is ever present. Hold on to that Supreme Father who is ever available to reveal us this truth. That Supreme Father who shines as our own heart. The heart is not different from Arunachala. Ramana never moved away from the feet of that Supreme Father Arunachala. Physically, he stayed there in and around Arunachala, and internally, he was ever abiding in that great force, that Parameshwara who is taking care of the whole universe, to revive the faith in that Arunachala, that Parameshwara, that supreme force which is taking care of the whole universe. Ramana had to come in a human form. Ramana, who is none other than Subramanya, the Guru Guha, the Guru who shines in the heart cave, appeared amidst us in the human form so that we can understand and get back to his true presence within. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We continue the satsang with the sharing by Dr. Sarada on the verses, on the namas written by Vishwanatha Swami, which is titled Ramana Ashtottara.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on the Ramana Ashtottara Shatanamavali composed by Vishwanatha Swami, the litany of 108 names, and we are meditating on the Nama Om Pitrupadan Veshine Namaha. He who set out in search of his father's feet. And we have been meditating on the journey of Bhagavan to Arunachala, how he commenced the journey, how he wrote the note before leaving home, and he rushed to the station to find that the train had not yet come and he had not missed the train. And in his hurry, he looked at the railway timetable over there. The ticket fares were written, and on the ticket counter, near the ticket counter, he saw it. He took a ticket to Tindivanam, which he had already thought was the place closest to Tiruvannamalai. See, in our life also, all this Bhagavan shows to us as if it is our journey, not as if it is his journey. In a way, it is his journey. The very beautiful journey, we will see it unfold. But it's also our journey. And in that journey, we have a lot of preconceived notions. We just think, oh, already I know Tindivanam is the closest to Tiruvannamalai. So I'm not even looking for anything else. I'm not alert. I'm not vigilant to what is happening at that point of time. This is our life. So vigilance saves us so much of difficulty. If Bhagavan had been vigilant in that moment, if he had just seen whether there is an option or not, any other option, he might have seen that Tiruvannamalai is directly accessible by train, and he had the 3 rupees. He had the wherewithal also to buy a ticket to Tiruvannamalai. But in Bhagavan's case, it is not mere absence of vigilance or carelessness, because we already dwelt on the fact that Bhagavan was drawn, he was pulled like a small iron filing to a huge magnet. Bhagavan himself says that he was swept to Arunachala by a great current. By a great current. He had no volition whatsoever. That being the case, why did Arunachaleshwara put Bhagavan through this journey of 2 days, 3 days, 2 nights, 29th, 30th, 31st, 3 nights. He left on 29th of August, 29th night, 30th night, and 31st night. And on 1st of September only he reaches Arunachala. So, Bhagavan did not take it because Dr. A.S. Venugopal Rao, he says, talking about Ramayana, actually talking about Ramanayanam only, about Bhagavan's advent. He says, you know why Bhagavan has come? The story of Bhagavan is not even the story which we read in the biographies, be it Self-Realization written by B.V. Narasimha Swami or Timeless in Time written by A.R. Natarajan. It is not that. It is not the story which is encapsulated in the Ashtottara which we are talking about. He was born at Tiruchuri. He became enlightened in Madurai. He reached Arunachala on the 1st of September 1896. Yes, that is a story. But Venugopal Rao says that is not the story, that the Bhagavan story is not limited to that. It is, his story is for me, says Dr. Venugopal Rao. His story is for every one of us. That is the story. So, if you look at this journey which we meditated upon in one of the dance dramas called the Yathirai Kandam, Bhagavan's presence in each of the places, the blessing which he has to give to each of the people. And Dr. Venugopal Rao equates it to Rama's coming. And he says, Rama's coming is not merely for the killing of Ravana. That is a subsidiary purpose. The main purpose is to bless all those rishis in the forest meditating on him. It is to bless Guha. It is to bless Shabari. It is to bless Jatayu. It is to bless all the Vanaras that Rama came. And similarly, on this journey, which Bhagavan Ramana, as a boy of 16, young boy of 16, totally unaware of the world, he has bought a ticket to Tindivanam. He climbed onto the train and he sat down and he was absorbed in meditation. He was absorbed in the self. That is why his brother scolded him. That's why his brother said, why do you need a place like this? Because he could not help being absorbed in that. So he was absorbed in that. And the train is moved and it is just going. It came to Trichy and he has some change with him, right? Because he did not spend the entire 3 rupees. And he bought a berikai. Berikai he bought. It's called a country pear. And he ate it. But he says there was one phenomena. He felt hunger. That's why he bought the pear. But when he ate even a little bit, his hunger was satiated. So he probably did not eat both the pears which he bought. And I was reminded while reading of this, of his buying the pear, of a very sweet depiction of Krishna and the fruit seller. We see a baby Krishna standing under a tree, and a fruit seller, she's giving him, and he's collecting all the fruits from her, and it's beautifully painted that he's holding so many fruits he can hardly hold them, and she's just heaping, offering fruit after fruit to him, and just looking at him, the beauty of this young Krishna standing there, and her basket is getting filled with diamonds and rubies and gold and jewelry. But that is probably, he must have, Bhagavan Ramana must have also blessed that fruit seller from whom he bought the country pears. And then the train was moving on, and there was in that compartment an old Maulvi who was actually discoursing on philosophy to his fellow passengers. So he was discussing various points of philosophy, and he must have noticed this young boy completely almost unaware of his surroundings, yet so radiant with the Atma Tejas. He would have seen him. And then at one point, when this young boy, this boy of 16, and the young Venkatraman, when he opened his eyes, the Maulvi started a conversation with him and asked him, "Where are you going?" And this boy, he replied, "I am going to Tiruvannamalai." And then the Maulvi said, "Oh, is it so? Even I am going to Tiruvannamalai." Now, it was a surprise. The first surprise long back, a few weeks or months before, was to know Tiruvannamalai is a place on earth. Oh, is it so? Is Tiruvannamalai a place on earth? Bhagavan had asked. And now he is asking the Maulvi, is it so? Does the train go to Tiruvannamalai? And the Maulvi would have answered, said, "Strange boy you are, that you say you are going to Tiruvannamalai, but you don't know that the train goes to Tiruvannamalai. Where then have you bought your ticket to?" And he says, "To Tindivanam." So this, all the biographers say, this is how Arunachaleshwara revealed the correct path to Bhagavan. In our spiritual journey, every moment of our spiritual journey is guided by the Sadguru. If we make a sincere effort and try to go along the path to the best of our understanding, then the way is shown by divine grace. This is what is revealed by this instance. And that's why when I was a young girl of 13, I asked Muruganar Swami whether I could put my full faith in Bhagavan and I didn't even say I would put my full faith, whether I could just keep doing self-enquiry, taking him to be my guru. And Muruganar Swami said, "Put your full faith in him, full faith, and keep doing." I do not know whether even now I am aware fully of the rightness of the path that I am following, in the sense of my understanding, whether it is complete, whether it has any limitations. The path is clear, of course, but whether I have understood it completely, whether I am practicing it the way it should be practiced, I don't know. But one thing I have seen, that from time to time, Bhagavan gives clarity. That clarity may come from a fellow traveler. The fellow traveler, like the Maulvi came with the young Venkatraman, any fellow traveler, sometimes insights come to us from our friends, from our relatives, from anecdotes which we listen to happening in the lives of others, from our helpers, from those who serve us, from sometimes maybe we read something, sometimes we hear a song, Sometimes it may just be something that we see in nature. It may be the rise of a sun, it may be the movement of an insect or a bird or something like that. But something reveals to us the truth. Something tells us, oh, this is what it is. This is what it is. This is the correct way. What you're doing, there is some error in this. This is where you have to turn. This is how you have to change your direction. And that's how the Molvi told the young Venkatraman, you have to get down at Villipuram. You should not go all the way to Tindivanam. You should get down at Viluppuram. You should get down there. At Viluppuram, you get down, and then you have to take another train to Tiruvannamalai. So he got the news, and again he was lost, absorbed in the self, until he got down at Viluppuram early in the morning. This was the first day, the first night of Arunachala taking the young Ramana to his own feet. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang and conclude it with a few verses of Ramana's Arunachala Aksharamanamalai chanted by Srimati V.Radha. This will be followed by the Ashtottara puja to Bhagavan at the Ramana Maharshi Heritage Center Meditation Hall. The chanting will be by Vaibhavji and Prarthana, followed by Uma Sripathy and Ashwini Balaji. The Aarti song will be recited by Revathi Sankar.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. வீடு விட்டீர் தூள வீடு புக்கு பயவுன் வீடு காட்டினை அருள் அருணாச்சலா. வெளிவிட்டேன் உன் செயல் வெறுத்திடாதுன் அருள் வெளிவிட்டென்னை காருணாச்சலாம். வேதாந்தத்தே வேறற விளங்கும் வேத பொருள் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. வைதலை வாழ்த்தா வைத்தருள் கூடியா வைத்தென்னை விடாதருள் அருணாச்சலாம். அம்புவில் ஆலிப்போல் அன்புரு உன்னில் என்னை அன்பாக்கரை தருள் அருணாச்சலா. அருணை என்றென்னையான் அருள் கண்ணிப்பட்டேன் உன் அருள் வல்லை தப்புமோ அருணாச்சலா. சிந்தித்தருள் பட சிலந்தி போல் கட்டி சிறையிட்டுண்டனை அருணாச்சலா. அன்போடு நாமம் கேள் அன்பர்த்தம் அன்பருக்கன்பனாயிட அருள் அருணாச்சலா. என் போலும் தீனரை இன்புற காத்து நீ எந்நாளும் வாழ்ந்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. என்புரு கன்பர்த்தம் என் சொற்கொள் செவியும் உன் பொன்மொழி கொள அருள் அருணாச்சலா. பொறுமயாம் பூதர புன் சொல்லை நன் சொல்ல பொறுத்தருள் இஷ்டம் பின் அருணாச்சலா. மாலை அளித்தருணாச்சல ரமண என் மாலை அணிந்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. மாலை அளித்தருணாச்சல ரமண என் மாலை அணிந்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி. அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி. நமோ ரமண.
नमो रमण. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमण अष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चेत् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासेन महोंशेन जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः. ॐ महौजसे नमः. ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः. ॐ जगद्हितावताराय नमः. ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः. ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः. ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः. ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः. ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः. ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः. ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः. ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः. ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः. ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः. ॐ तीव्राय नमः. ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः. ॐ इन्दुमौळिना पितृमते नमः. ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः. ॐ तपोमयाय नमः. ॐ उदासीनाय नमः. ॐ महायोगिने नमः. ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः. ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः. ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः. ॐ सुसन्द्रशे नमः. ॐ सवित्रे नमः. ॐ स्थिराय नमः. ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः. ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः. ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः. ॐ च्यूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः. ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः. ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः. ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः. ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः. ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः. ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः. ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः. ॐ पूर्णाय नमः. ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः. ॐ गम्भीराय नमः. ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः. ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः. ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः. ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः. ॐ धीराय नमः. ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः. ॐ स्वराजे नमः. ॐ महर्षये नमः. ॐ भगवते नमः. ॐ ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्री शोणाचरहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनागगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ हृच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनाम पूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शनसुखमङ्गलमुख सकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्गीये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ. ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ. ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ. ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ. बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की
जय